Oh yeah, that's dope.
Go for it.
Nice. It always makes me happy when I debate people with these things. Cool. Okay, all good?
Yep.
Imagine a beach ball. What is it? You could say that it's round or colorful or bouncy, but those descriptions would fail to capture the entirety of the ball because all they are descriptions. To understand what the beach ball truly is, at least according to Deleuze, you must understand it in terms of relationships. When the ball interacts with the floor, it becomes a bouncing beach ball. When it interacts with a pin, it becomes a popping beach ball. When it interacts with me, it could potentially be a ball that triggers the memory of a trip to the beach. The ball's potentiality is a part of its being, and that potentiality only exists through relations of power. Potentiality is where some people get lost here, but let me make it clear. It's like a building as opposed to a book of empty blueprints. The building is the object, like the beach ball. The blueprint is every potentiality of the ball, like the popping or the bouncing. The entirety of the blueprint is the realness of an object and is key to understanding what the building really is. Thus, existence only exists as multiplicity. Everything is connected to on a fundamental level and has infinite potential. Now I'll start sounding more normal. Western metaphysics has hypnotized the masses into believing they have an accurate understanding of being, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Things, like subjectivity, have normalized existence, creating the illusion that we exist separately from the world around us. The idea of a subject that exists independently entails that we create the categories that we are segmented into. However, there is no reason the concept of something like gender or race is any more or less of a concept than the concept of me as a being, just as I can affect something like race. Race can affect me. In fact, it creates me. There's no such thing as a subject that falls into categories, because categories are what create the illusion of a subject in the first place. Masumi. Man is not woman, woman is not man, adult is not child. None of these terms have positive content. They are anti-categories forming an opposition of greater category. Eventually, designates the thing. Deleuze reverses that formulation and says the body is designated for categories and the process are constituted. The same language is a prescriptive rather than referential. It's a boy's determination equivalence. Will make a man of him even if it kills him. The body is negativized the price of its entry into it officially. Recognizes its meaning in favor of what it has in common with other similarly prescribed bodies. Membership to class of equivalence is posed between two, or to place the body in system of difference which produces the same one. In the class identification is arbitrary, except there's no natural connection between a body and its category. And although categories are constructed as normative, they really aren't. The sum total of the categories that affect it produces in you, but there are always other things that can affect you in similar ways. The question of being isn't identity or the creation of a subject, but of unraveling of an infinite amount of potential than descriptions that create you, allowing them to change and evolve, since that's what existence is: relationship, interaction, and possibility. Musser. Deleuze's motive embodiment forms the politics of non-identity by illuminating flesh while not writing if I connection between experience and subjectivity. What do my relations matter if I can obtain similar effects by different means? As the transversal relations and arbitrary effects produced by some particular way can always produce by other means. Experience is not legible as identity, nor is the subject form. It's not a question of being this or that sort of human, but of becoming, unraveling your body's human organization, exploring this or that zone of bodily intensity with everyone discovering their own particular zones. Because being is transformative, it constantly accesses new potentials. The role of the ballot is to affirm transformative becomings, learning, and knowledge, which are what we seek here, literally only exist through becoming. Since becoming is the activation of potential, and potential is the way we gain access to knowledge or existence at all that can count as new or productive. In terms of this round, Raimi. Learning centers on problems, not on solutions. The essence of swimming is never a permanent solution to the problem that real question, not what to swim, but where can I swim, when can I swim, are real acts, or just through our perception of the real relations they're providing solution. Learning always takes place in and through unconscious establishing the ball between nature and mind. The syntheses are produced not at the level of clear identifiable objects, but with force that appear on these unconscious elements. Every perception is new creation, and learning happens when a new mode of existence comes to being. Learning happens through participation in the unknown, and transformational becomes or any actions or mindsets that rupture ontological categories imposed upon subjects. It's a destruction of who we are supposed to be, what bodies are supposed to exist, and a complete obliteration of any stable notion of existence at all. Rather, it is the embracing of possibility for things to become things through interaction, which is completely possible. Only fascist metaphysics told us otherwise. The eternal impact that I solve is micro-fascism, which is precisely this categorization. Think of it like someone intentionally concealing blueprints to create the appearance that all there is the building. This comes first. A precludes access to any sort of the good because it shows how perception of reality itself has been conditioned by fascism. So liberation of the prior question. B. It allows for infinite exploitation or oppression. The state categorizes so it can co-opt the subject. They know who you are, so they can sell you things, use you, enslave you, pretty much take care of everything. These foundational forms of oppression as well, because arbitrary categorization is the basis of exclusion as a whole, because of fundamental violence that translate into macro-political violence. And the primary site of totalization, or the creation of the subject, is the body, the flesh. Western philosophy, also known as fascism, seeks the creation of a unified organic body by which to normalize ideas of the body as a whole. Chris. The fundamental fascist vision is one of a cohesive society structured around the metaphor of the healthy body. Into politics, the body will act on body. Health, the body becomes a regulator of ideals. Spectacularization of the body is always present, but it's also accompanied by the high idea that health is good enough itself. Individual health and social health, the ideology of sport and fitness has its roots in Victorian England. The desperate belief that sports will prevent masturbation. Fitness and beauty are still good. Sickness and affliction are still bad. Thus, overthrowing all of our ideas of what the body is or should be are necessary to combat fascism and liberate being. Bodies are the foundation for the creation of subjects separated by categories, and we need to mess them up. Chris 2. There is no unitary body. The thing that we call the body is nothing more than a collection of scars that constitutes our experience of it. There's only a series of metamorphoses without aim, and the healthy body is only another kind of deformation. If you throw coughs of a hard G sound like a Russian, then you're on one side. If you wheeze, and it's like a Ukrainian, the other. The idea of organic and discrete Ukrainian and Russia is dependent on the metaphor of an organic and discrete body. Thus, My advocacy is that adolescents can medicinally do whatever the hell they want to do to their bodies. Let's get piercings, get tatted up, shoot up drugs, add on some genitalia, get horns or tails, literally do anything. A transformational becoming is a disruption of the identity imposed upon you. You sift through the many labels and become a fluid entity. Given that the imposition of subjectivity happens on the level of the body, allowing for the transformation of the body at every level of the legal, the physical, the genital is the only way to solve. This is also the best explanation of autonomous action that's consistent with the non-existent and independent subject categories themselves instantiate objects creating the illusion of autonomy, but humans are the ones being affected, creating to fit the image of a state entity. The only real autonomy is an action that disrupts existence itself. Mizumi and Dean. The personified body was not autonomous only or organ of the state. Do individual humans reproduce the state in spite of themselves with perpetual front to an essential autonomy of the state-related apparatus to produce individuated humans in order to reproduce themselves is human autonomy merely a phase in the cycle of inhuman autonomic processes, even in the case of most human appearances, apparatuses, law, bureaucracy. Humans are part of a machine rather than a machine being served of humanity. Perhaps we can find a metamorphic cure for our human illness. This also means that state apparatuses such as race, gender, and sexuality are not only reproduced by people, these objects themselves affect and create beings that reproduce them. So the state affects people that in turn propagate it under the guise of subjectivity. Norms and all forms of normative imposition are not imposed on subjects. They build the illusory category of subjects to be their vehicles in the first place. CX.
Can you just pull it and go to the top of the F?
Yeah.
Everyone go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. How do you disrupt identity?
It's not like just disrupting identity, it's disrupting the idea that there can be a stable existence or like an actual normative category placed upon something or someone. The argument is that because of this, so we'll just call it normalization. So the argument coming out of Misumi is saying that the subject is the result of this normalization. It's the building of the building rather than it, acknowledging the blueprint. The argument coming out of Chris shows that this commodification, this building of the building is the body. The building that we build is the body, and we look at the body as that thing, that normative category that creates the precondition for creating these subjects. Then the argument about the AC is saying that this implication of the body being normative is totally disrupted because we destroy it. We destroy any normative category that has been imposed upon our bodies. We say do anything you want, get horns, get a tail, cut off your genitalia, put in new genitalia, do literally anything you want. So it's disrupting the idea that maybe there's some kind of healthy body, maybe there's some kind of body that we should be, right? Because shooting up a huge thing of morphine or shooting up a big thing of heroin probably isn't the normative category that we want the body to be.
Okay, so that the solvency of the AC is.
The solvency of the AC comes through the advocacy. Yeah, it's not there's no evidence that explains the solvency of the AC. I explained why the AC is a form of becoming and why the AC disrupts these categorizations.
Okay, so would the AF be a policy option?
It would not be a policy option in the sense that a state implements a law or so and so, something like that. So no, I guess. But
okay, what parts of the AF would engage with theory or topicality besides the role of the ballot weighing?
I'd say all of them. I'd say the very idea of the subject that I criticize, the idea of a stable normalization being possible, is what I criticize. I'm not going to tell you exactly what my arguments would be, but I think theory probably aligns pretty strongly with that stuff.
Okay, how do we evaluate rules and constraints that we have to follow?
What do you mean?
Okay, so how do you differentiate when you don't have to be a subject of specific rules or things that you have to follow?
Can you give me I'm not quite understanding the question. Can
okay,
you give me,
so the way I understand the AF is we can't succumb to the way you're currently subject in different situations. So if that's true, is it not a performative contradiction when it comes to the AF that you just complied with having 6 minutes of speech time? There's specific rules and regulations that you can't separate yourself from.
So I guess that's an argument you could make. I have responses to that, but I would say that you saying that does not prevent me from inducing possibility. Just because we exist in a space now does not mean that space cannot arise. In that space, we cannot arise new possibilities.
Okay, how do we engage, or what's the negative burden to engage with people?
I defend an advocacy. It's the same. It's like normal, right? You can defend a competitive advocacy that is mutually exclusive, that is better. You could give reasons why my advocacy is necessarily bad. You can criticize the framing of my advocacy. It just it works like a normal AF. I just have
who does the AF
framing and
apply
interaction. The AF applies to what do you mean? Are you asking for how I define adolescence or what?
4.
It's 5, I think. I've been doing 5.
Yeah.
Are you asking about my definition of adolescence?
Yeah.
Or okay, so I don't explicitly say, but the definition that I'm going to go by that would be warranted by my ontology arguments is that adolescence necessarily applies to everyone because I say that everything is in a state of becoming. So in that sense, we would all be in a state of becoming adolescents.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, can you just email it to me?
You get it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone good?
You said 3 off case?
Yeah.
Cool.
A is the interpretation in order
whoops.
to... Okay.
Sorry.
Yay, starting over. Okay, everyone good?
Awkward. Okay. We could.
A is the interpretation in order to be topical in 2015 September-October topic. The app must garner offense only from adolescents. B is the violation. The app is extra topical. They derive benefits from becoming whatever the heck that actually means. And next is standards. First, predictable limits. It allows for the plan to become topical no matter how unpredictable this could be for an infinite number of non-topical plans that they could also advocate for. And predictability to keep fairness. It's the only way that debaters can actually be prepared for a round. I solve this back because I limit the scope of the resolution, and extra topicality destroys the best checked on predictable limits. Strengthen 04. Affirmatives are restricted to the plain's mandate only doing the things that are authorized by the liberal meaning of the words of the resolution. The resolution creates the problem of extra topicality because the affirmative team is not allowed to go beyond the boundaries of the resolution. If you are the affirmative team to throw in extra topical mandates, the advantages will not be long before the real case and a tiny portion of the AC and extra topical stuff becomes the real purpose of debate. The situation grossly abusive and the negative team has to come over for the extraneous matters the affirmative might want to bring up. And next is discharge ground. The affirmative interpretation allows to solve for the disadvantage I run with the non-topical blanks means the same as the intrinsicness. The answer means I have to move and insert some random non-topical actions to solve for any of my harms. I solve for this because I'm only advocating for the blanks under the scope of the resolution, and decide ground is key to affairs because the only way we can negate offense and gain offense under the weight of the AC and the negative can't win. Compromise offense if it's impossible to access the ballot. And voter. Fairness is a voter because the ballot makes made a competition which were constrained by rules, so each person has an equal chance to win. And if anything else, you should also look to fairness because he complied to the speech outside the AC by reading an affirmative and affirming the resolution. And he also said that we complied to speech time and the amount of prep. He said that he's been using 5 minutes every round. And even if fairness is somewhat arbitrary, there's a reason to debate more about theory and try to create bright lines and norms in debate. And we currently have norms and bright lines, which is another reason that like extra 2 is bad. And education voted because the knowledge we accumulate in researching arguments and crafting positions supporting our lives is crucial for the understanding of the world we live in. And competing in terms because first, reasonability puts us in a double bind. Either A, the judge and debater have an arbitrary standard to determine the bright line of reasonability, or B, we debate over what the bright line actually is, which only collapses back into competing in terms. 2, the distinction between actual and potentially abuse. The relevant argument will be used in every function of the debate round. The more relevant consideration of how the argument could be potentially used, since the argument is used in multiple ways, to drop the debater. And A, in order to determine bad arguments and encourages spikes. And B, to drop the debater interest checking on in-round abuse. And C, he can't evaluate substantive fairness. It's already been skewed. Judge had an obligation to vote down these positions. And no FRVIs because 1, theory is reciprocal. He gave a theory on me. 2, this solves all the offense on RVIs because whatever dying I'm done, they can do 2. And 2, debate becomes educationally bankrupt. No one ever go for substance because debate is already going to be decided on theory. And 3, the fallacy of the antecedent. You can't win for being fair. If you say that you're running theory because it's unfair, you lose because you make arguments for an RVI, and this precludes fairness in education arguments so that they're logically incoherent. And next. A is the interpretation. The act must specify an age range for adolescents the plan applies to. Adolescence is a very vague concept. Marcia. One difficult study in adolescence is the definition of the period itself. One of the variables specific in the beginning is the psychological change of the puberty. The termination of adolescence is used to depend on the assignment of the certain psychological position and the conformity to identity, and then somewhat would never end. B is the violation. The AC defends age as being fluid and then trying to have the ability for a transformation. I don't actually know what that means. And standards. First is shifting ground, allowing for the app to apply to different age range means whatever I brought into the 1 and C moves the offense and kills fairness because none of my arguments can be deemed for relevant. And this is also the internal link to fairness because we need to have equal access to argument, and it's the internal link to education. We need equal access to arguments and to be able to engage each other's positions. And 2 is topic lit. Authors and the subject routinely have distinctions between the different maturity levels of adolescence. Kaufman. The growing body's work suggests the temporal disjunction between the heightening arousal of the brain systems and indicating to the reward system at the time of puberty and unfolds the course of the adolescence and young adulthood. It creates a period of special vulnerability and the suboptimal decision making to middle adolescence, consistent with the amount of different studies of ages differences in the sensation and seeking into the impulsivity found in the former ages between 10 to 15 and then declines compared to individuals that are 17 and older, which offer the choice between different intermediate rewards and the larger delayed ones in the younger adolescence infant, the relative stronger preference to the former. And cut the card there. And topically connects to fairness because the base of all predictable, equitable arguments. That's literally what the topic is. And 2, the topic literature outweighs all other forms of education and strength of link only because the topic, or we're going to make topic education when we're talking about philosophical and theory on other topic. And 3, resolvability because different ages of adolescence exhibit different levels of decision-making ability. We don't know what the group is until we're talking about until we determine rational capacity. And the huge part of the topic makes it debate irresolvable, and resolvability is independent voter because if debate can't be resolved, then there's no effective reason to debate. And cross-apply the voters from the first shell. And 3rd, Part A is moral culpability. Every moral theory presupposes that agents are moral beings. It presupposes we have the ability to make choices and thus be punished for the choices we make. Thus, moral culpability is an important factor in morality. More averse to any other type of moral starting point because ethics assume we have to choose to be rational or are rational in the first place. One would say that we should punish hurricanes for murder. Therefore, my standard is ensuring that fair treatment for moral culpability of agents prefer the standard because first, people should only face consequences of their actions if they're actually culpable for their actions. Strawson. Where we are, and we cannot be thought through ourselves in the way in which we can help free from our actions, the way in which can we help morally responsible for our actions, the way in which would just and undermine any punishment or reward for the actions would be ultimately just or fair to say exactly to just or punish or reward someone for the action is punish or reward them for the color of their hair or the shape of their face. We tend to feel the explicit self-conscious awareness of ourselves as agents who feels deliberate to what we do suffices the inconstitutes as morally responsible free agents of the strongest sense, whatever the conclusion of the basic argument. Second, individuals who are not rational enough to understand the rules and how they apply to them should not be punished. Morse. Is unjust to blame or punish anyone who doesn't deserve to be punished. It would be fair and thus unjustified to punish or inflict pain intentionally on someone who doesn't act intentional and incapable of the minimum degree of rationality required for normally accepted cooperation, interaction. People who lack capacity for rational guidance do not deserve to be punished. Skip 3 and 4. While agents are culpable for their actions, I contend that adolescents are not morally culpable agents and are not capable of making autonomous medical choices. First, adolescents are very different than adults cognitively. The way adults and adolescents think is necessarily different, and adolescents are inevitable to make immature decisions. Scott. Adolescents seem to deter from adults in the perception of the attitude towards risk, and adolescents take much more risk with health and safety of other adults, which is more frequently engaging in the activities and the criminal conduct connected to sex and speeding. Adolescent risk preferences may be linked to the developmental factors. For example, adolescents may be more adverse with the adults to risk social ostracism, and suggest that the studies of conceptualizing themselves invulnerable to the potentially negative consequences of this risk. This is a direct solvency takeout to any of the possible offense you could pretend that there is in the AC, because if adolescents are just going to do whatever the hell they want, literally, that's the solvency advocate is only going to lead to adolescents making really harmful decisions, which is going to be ultimately worse for them as an individual. To me, that the negative case is a prerequisite because we cannot punish people if they do not actually know what they're being punishment for. Then go to the AC. First off, the majority evidence there's not actually going to be a change in the ACP. Doesn't defend there being an implementation or a policy action, mean that there's no never actually going to be a way to solve anything in the AC. And then second, we are complying with rules and regulations of the debate route, mean that the affirmative case itself is a performative contradiction. Meaning the framework makes literally no sense. And if anything else, there is a very clear link with the Scott evidence that the app is not actually going to do anything. He just said a bunch of things that might happen and trying to break down systems that can't be broken down.
Okay, so what is the difference between the two interps that you read? The first one is that just tell me the difference.
Okay, so the first one is in terms of this resolution. The second one. Adolescence is just a very vague concept. So the app should have had a definition or done something. Or instead of just not answering me when I said what is an adolescent. So
did answering that an adolescent counts as everyone, why is that not sufficient? Why does that make my ground shifty, right? Why does that mean you can just read disides to everyone?
Okay, so typically the disides that, or at least I've written on this topic, are very applicable to specific groups of people in terms of
so why doesn't that mean you can just read all of them?
Okay, so that's not their resolution.
Wait, but you asked me for the interpretation of the resolution that I go into with the affirmative.
Okay, which is
I told
why
you that an
defined
adolescent applies to everyone. Okay,
Okay.
so where's your definition of adolescence?
Okay, so it's not in the Maria evidence. The
So you don't tell me what I have to.
So it talks about how in terms of adolescent.
So I have a separate question. I have a different question.
An adolescent and an adult.
Do you tell me what age range of adolescent that I have to defend? Do you specify a kind of adolescent that is the definition of adolescent?
No.
Okay, so that means we could probably assume that my definition of adolescent is true, right? Because you don't provide an alternative.
Okay, probably not, because the Scott
Why?
evidence.
So what part of the NC disproves
The
my
Scott
definition of adolescence?
Evidence of the NC is very clear that there is a difference between adolescents and young adults than adolescents and adults.
Okay, and that difference is from cognitive ability, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's also why we have a definition of a legal adult at 18.
Okay, that's fine. So let's talk about your first argument. Where do you contextualize why my offense comes from becoming? You say that my offense. So you say my offense has to come from adolescence. Okay, so in a Kant aff, the offense comes from not violating a maxim. So would a Kant aff violate this shell too?
I don't understand the question.
So you say the violation is that I get my offense from becoming, not from adolescence.
Yeah.
So would that logically apply to a Kant aff and says, Kant aff, you get your offense from violating maxims, not from adolescence.
That'd be straight from a explicit principle app, and I'd probably still read theory on that.
So why is becoming not a framing mechanism for impacts rather than the way I access my
It's
impact?
a framing, and there has to be something that follows along with framing instead of just saying, oh, we should
Okay, so why is the part
something.
that follows along with framing not my advocacy that adolescents should be able to do this action that allows them to become?
Because you are now gaining possible offense from the notion that adolescents are transforming or changing into a new subject.
So that is my advocacy, right? The advocacy says that they change into a new subject. Why is there a violation here?
Okay, so once again, you are looking to adolescents should move forward and transform into something. It is not actually offense from decisions that adolescents are making.
Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about the NC really quickly. You talk about moral culpability. Who has to be culpable for their actions? A moral agent, right?
Yeah.
What is a moral agent? What is a moral
actions.
agent?
What is a moral agent?
Yeah.
Someone who complies to rules and tries to do good.
Okay. Starting prep. $2.19 left. No. Or just, it's going to be AC, AC, first shell, second shell, NC. but there will be cross applications on the AC to these other positions.
I bet. Can you adjust the mic so it's straight? There we go.
Okay, is everyone good?
Yep.
Every argument that she's making in the last speech is still assuming that existence exists as a building, but she is forgetting the example of the beach ball, saying that existence can only exist in multiplicity because we can only understand things in terms of their interactions, their potential to interact with other things, meaning we have to understand existence in terms of the book of blueprints. This is going to be really problematic for a lot of the things that she's reading. So first, the extension of the Masumi evidence is going to take out the implication of the T in theory, also the arguments about moral culpability of these subjects. So extend the Masumi evidence saying that the normative categories such as the subject are really problematic because they assign an arbitrary definition that created as normative, i.e. they build a building around the moral subject and not looking at the blueprint. This argument takes out first of all both the chills because she's talking about a specific age range of adolescence or a specific kind of adolescence that I have to depend, but she concedes that the definition of adolescence is literally fluid. The adolescent is in everyone, meaning also that means that she's also not providing an alternative definition of what adolescence is or what adolescent I have to defend, meaning worst case scenario you can always just because I'm giving you a true definition of adolescence because what I'm saying this is what an adolescent is. An adolescent is anything. It is a form of becoming, meaning there is no way you can pin down what it is. Also takes out the NC because it means that moral culpability is impossible because there's no such thing as stable subject. Masumi criticizes what the subject is in the first place because subject is an arbitrary category that's applied to flesh, means that her construction of the subject is also problematic, and exactly what the AC criticizes. The extension of the Mooser evidence contextualizes why the AC advocacy is really good for questioning these things. We saying that we have to destroy these boundaries, and rather than creating categories, the project is to look within ourselves and understand the becomings and possibilities that exist. This has implications for the role of the ballot too. The role of the ballot is framing how these ontology arguments function in terms of this round. Raimi explained this really well, saying the only way that we can have productivity or way that we can get something to debate around is to induce these forms of becoming. Extend the role of the ballot text, that is affirming space of possibility. Then extend the implication of this, that this first comes before education fairness, specifically takes out education because she says education, saying that we have to take something out of this round. Raimi contextualizes what it means to take something out of this round, what it means to gain new knowledge, because if you're just building a building, that is not new knowledge. My argument is the space for possibility, i.e. the construction of the blueprint, is what allows for new possibilities, what allows for new knowledge in the first place. So I recontextualize what that means. Also takes out fairness because her detriment to fairness is saying that fairness disallows her from doing something, makes her access something not good, i.e. she is not getting something out of this debate. I also recontextualize what that means, meaning she is having a worldview or a view of debate that is not she's having that is not contesting what mine is. Also, they can extend to Chris 1 and Chris 2 evidence, saying the idea of the body is the exactly where the commodification of the subject has been happening. Then the advocacy that the adolescent should be able to do whatever the hell they want disrupts the subject and is complete solvency because they are inducing a form of becoming that disrupt the body, which is the place of subjectivity. Then go to the first shell. She says that I have I have to defend only adolescence, but I do the offense has to come from adolescence. I do the offense does come from adolescence. It comes from adolescence becoming. Her interpretation makes no sense. She would exclude literally every single firm because the offense from an LD case doesn't come from adolescence. It comes from adolescence doing something. My argument is adolescence doing something is a creation of offense, i.e. the adolescence becoming. Her arguments are nonsensical. Then off the second shell, she says that I have to specify an age range. I do specify an age range. I say that it is everyone. There's no shifty ground. There's no sketchiness whatsoever because you could have read every single one of your decisions. You are just trying to read a T-shell that is actually not applicable. You need to read a specific definition of adolescence that you want me to defend for this to be applicable. Also, overview on T in theory. She's conceding the ontology arguments and the idea that Masumi criticizes of the creation of a subject. You are trying to commodify debate. You are trying to create an initial interpretation of what debate should be or should look like, but you have conceded arguments about ontology as to why there is no such thing as a singular form of what things should be. A singular form of debate, a singular model of the interpretation that we should exist in, meaning the interpretation always has to be fluid. You concede arguments at the prior level that means that you cannot commodify, you cannot create a normalized interpretation of what anything should be or ought to be because you because that is the normative subject that precludes the possibility of any learning anything good that is coming out of the micro-fascism and Max. Also, specifically on the NC, she appeals to an idea of moral culpability that is bad. I've already taken up the subject. Then off the specific answer to the AC. First of all, she says that I can't solve without a policy. Makes no sense. I don't defend a state action. I just defend that this is something we should do. It can be illegal if we want to. Also, she says that I act within a space. There's no reason why you can't induce becomings with the state. That's a link to the role of the ballot. We can still induce becomings here.
150. It's the first shell, the second shell, and C, then AC. Actually, just kidding. Start on the AC.
AC, first shell, second shell, NC.
Yeah. Is everyone good?
Yep.
First, as an overview of the framework on the AC, it's really problematic that first, he didn't do any justifications on how there's actually a solvency or how the AC is going to do anything productive. He just raised a couple arguments about how it's going to take out the positions I read, but there is no actually implication that there's going to be anything that is going to solve any of the problems of subjectivity that he highlights in his framework. Then second, he's also conceding there's a very strong performative contradiction happening in the affirmative world because he is complying with things like speech acts and specific rules and regulations you have to follow no matter what, which proves that in some instances there has to be a specific way of existence. There is a set right thing to do and a set wrong thing to do. There's a reason in his last speech he talks for 4 minutes instead of 6 minutes. He's complying and proving that there is some form of existence of things you should and should not have to follow. Then second, going down the roll of ballot, first, both these arguments are explicit why the roll of the ballot makes literally no sense, and if anything else, the AC doesn't do anything. He didn't extend any solvency. He talks about how if we were to look to the AC and allow for people to have like a fluid identity and look to what the transformation of your being actually looks like, there is no solvency of how the AC is going to actually do that through the terms of the resolution, which is another reason that theory is going to come first, because first, we can make sure that we're actually looking to topic-specific education, which is the reason I write theory, because the AC doesn't make any sense, and he also said there wasn't any solvency in the AC in CX. So if we go back to that, the AC is a horrible way to look at topic education because there's no way we can evaluate things of specific topic education in terms of the AC because one, we don't know what an adolescent is, and two, we don't know what it means to have a fluid identity in terms of transforming it into a new being and who that actually applies to. The AC is very vague on the notions of what the AC is actually implicating and what the AC would really look like if we were to paint it as a picture. Just giving an analogy of a beach ball isn't sufficient to affirm. Then, on the first theory shell, first extended interpretation talks about how, in order to be topical, Nolan probably should have read an app that garners impacts from adolescence. So first, okay, he says that he needs because it doesn't make any sense because it would exclude a bunch of apps, but the problem is that in terms of his affirmative case, he could have read that an adolescent is a specific rage. So if you were under the age of 18, which is a legal adult, which the Scott evidence at the NC is very clear about because there's a distinction between adolescents and young adults, that is the separation of a legal barrier when it comes to cognitive and riskability. So the issue is that he would have read an app that just talks about what an adolescent would look like and how an adolescent is actually able to transform their identity. That would be great, and he would have met, but because of that, the IME makes no sense. So, first, extend predictable limits that talks about how explicitly when it comes to extra topical apps, it's very hard because there's no longer a check on predictable limits that's coming out of the Trifethan 04 evidence. It talks about how the affirmative has a burden to try to be topical instead of being extra topical because he's just extending the boundaries of a resolution because instead of just looking to adolescents, he's looking to all people because he said in his last speech that all people have some root of adolescence. I don't even know what that means. Then, second, extend the voter fairness that is going to come before the roll of the ballot because each person has to be constrained of what rules actually mean, and since he is complying with specific things, then that's like 5 minutes of prep, then the fact that he is complying to specific speech times proves that fairness is very important in the realm of debate, which means they're going to come before the roll of ballot in terms of this debate round because we're making sure that we are doing exactly what is fair. We're determining what the bright lines and the norms of debate have to be because he's also following the norms which prove that there is an existence of norms, if anything else. Then, also in education as a voter talks about how the most important thing we're supposed to learn in Lakeland Douglas debate is specific to the resolution context because it is a unique key to look to education that we do not have access to outside of this, that we don't learn in school. It allows us to advocate for things that we specifically care about and understand the world we live in. Then, also extend the no RVIs. I mean, there is no reason that Nolan can try to win on theory now because he's trying to go for an RVI. The explicit talks about it as a no risk issue, but if anything else, the IME doesn't make any sense. So there is no possible mitigating defense that he could have off of the first shell. Then second, go to the other shell. First, he should have specified what an adolescent actually looks like and how that's going to apply in the plan. Marcia is very clear that there is a very broad definition of what it means to have an identity in terms of adolescence, which coincides because in terms of the AF, he's very clear that everyone has a fluid identity, which doesn't make any sense. The resolution is really clear that adolescents ought to have the right to make autonomous medical decisions. It doesn't make sense for it to apply to all people because that would include parts of the status quo because adults can currently consent. So we have to look to people that are not legal adults, which is very clear that would be what happened if we didn't just look to the ability to transform. And then first, for standards, Shifting ground is the app is going to be able to like shift out of any argument I like read in terms of the NC, because he can say that we're looking to specific groups of people, which doesn't make any sense because we have to make sure that we actually know what an adolescent means to be able to garner any offense of the AC and figure out what the AC would actually do if it were to be a like, real thing. Then second, Kaufman is also very clear that when it comes to the topic literature, that the subject that we are talking about is the different maturity of adolescence. So the app should have implemented that adolescents have like the ability to make decisions, and what would happen if the adolescents did then in hand actually make decisions instead of saying everyone is an adolescent. Then this is also the internal link to predictability, which is the internal link to topic education, because we're able to like read arguments and read carded evidence against our like each other's position, which is going to maximize the education we have in debate, which also comes before the role about, because we actually know what the role of we know what the implication of theory means versus the role of ballot is very vague on what would actually happen if we look to the role of ballot. Then off the NC, the only real argument he said that he addressed that the role of ballots came before the NC because we have to explicitly look to existence. But if we are both here right now and we both have notions of what it looks like when it comes to actions, or even if we comply that there are some norms, it means that I, as an individual, through the Strawson evidence, showed that I should not have to be faced consequences unless I'm actually culpable with the action, which means that as a 17-year-old, I probably should make my own medical decision because I could do something really harmful, which is going to then harm my identity in the long run. It's going to make life inherently worse, and he didn't try to contest that. Then the Morse evidence is also very clear that it is a horrible thing to blame and punish people for who don't actually deserve to be punished, which is a net harm that the app is going to do if we don't actually know if adolescents can make their own decisions. Then the Scott evidence is very clear that adolescents are very different than adults. That shows that once you're a legal adult, you can think much more substantially than you are when you are an adolescent, which means that if the adolescents in the affirmative world were to make their own decision, it's going to lead to a lot of harm, so it is not good for anyone's identity.
Starting prep. Okay. Same order as last time. AC, first shell, second shell, NC. Is everyone good?
Every single piece of offense that she has in this round comes from either a normative conception of fairness, a normative conception of an adolescent, and a normative conception of what a moral subject is. If I'm taking these out, then I win. She's conceding a ton of reasons why I take this out. So you can remember the example of the beach ball, how existence has to exist with potentiality. There's no such thing as stable existence because existence only exists as potential and interaction. That means that works really well with the Musumi evidence, saying that normative categories are false, i.e. is the creation of a building in the presence of a blueprint. You think that the building is the only thing that exists, but you're conceding reasons why the blueprint is the actual reality and why the blueprint is a false reality. You that takes out a few of the arguments. First of all, takes out the idea of a normative adolescent because it means that there is no such thing as normative adolescent. You should probably give a definition of what you want adolescent to mean if you are conceding the definition of that I'm having, i.e. that an adolescent is always becoming, because an adolescent, the potential for us to be an adolescent, the adolescent that we once were, is also part of us, meaning that it is implicit in all of us. Also, I'll give you reasons on the specific shells why that solves back the offense, but this probably means that this definitely the debate about the adolescence doesn't make sense. Also, you can say the other implication that goes completely conceded that that theory is still a normative conception of what debate should look like. You are conceding arguments as to why these normative conceptions are necessarily bad. They are either a preclusion of value or preclusion to taking anything out of this round, meaning your creation of the normative idea what debate should look like is necessarily bad, and exactly what I criticize. 100% concede to take out to the idea of theory in the first place. That ties into the extent of the Ramey evidence, which precludes which applies this to the debate and precludes the theory arguments. Extend the role of the ballot to open up space of possibility that the only way that we can actually gain anything, the only way that we can learn or get something productive is through these becomings. She does not access the becomings, meaning the only offense that actually exists in this round is offense back to the role of the ballot, which only I have. Extend that this specifically takes out fairness, because fairness assumes that we have to get something in this round, but I recontextualize what that means. I recontextualize what getting something or what learning something means, which also takes up the education. The only possible argument that she could go for is the argument that I still constrain, that I still work within the debate space, meaning I concede to some kind of regulations, but no, she's conceded the response that I say that your job is to induce becomings. We can still evaluate whether we're inducing becomings or closing off becomings in the debate world. It doesn't just because of the debate world does not mean becomings are all impossible. She's conceding solvency of the AC, which means becomings are definitely possible. Also, she's conceding reasons why theory is closing off becomings. If you want to think about it in a really text sense, she does not mean the role of the ballot. I do. Game over. Then you can extend the advocacy via the Chris evidence saying the site of commodifications happen on the body. Then the advocacy saying that I disrupt the body. She says that I don't. That there's no reason why the AC is productive. She's conceding reasons why it is, though. You by the AC story, I am disrupting the body. The body is the site of totalization. Disrupting the body is disrupting totalization, which links to the AC framing. Does not. Her arguments don't make sense. Then specifically on the first theory, shall extend the I mean that I do defend a form of becoming I'm telling you that adolescents are everyone. The offense comes from adolescents becoming her. Arguments are nonsensical. Then she's not responding to the I meet. Then off the second shell, extend the second I mean that I do specify an age range. She says I don't specify age range. I specify everyone. Everyone is adolescent. I'm also responding to the substance of the shell, saying that she can still read this. She can read this as to literally everyone. She's saying that we don't know what adolescence means. Yes, you know what it means. It means it has application to everything. All your just has link. Then on the NC, really quick, she assumes a moral subject. She's conceding reasons from the new evidence why there does not exist a moral subject in the first place. So the NC is nonsensical. Really easy. Vote on the app. Good round.
So I don't think we formally met. What's your name?
Madison.
I'm Nolan.
We've been in the same
Yeah, we've
groups
seen each
because
other.
we're friends or friends.
I've never actually talked to you. Nice to meet you, Madison.
Okay, did you actually get dared to dye your hair?
I
that
did.
color?
I lost a bet in Taiwan, and they chose orange. I guess it was peach color, something like that.
That's nice. That happened when we were at camp, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, Nolan's hair."
Yeah, that was my reaction too.
What's the bet?
Literally, okay. We were drunk in Taiwan.
Of course.
Literally, it's just
Casual.
yeah. Rock paper scissors. So this girl's like, Nolan, if I win rock paper scissors against you, you get the dagger. That's what they want. And then she was like, no, 2 out of 3. And everyone else in the room was like, yeah, obviously it's 2 out of 3. I'm like, okay. And then I lost the next one. So they took me to the hair salon and didn't let me choose the color and told the people to dye my hair orange.
Do you remember the joke I was gonna make when you were going to the bathroom and I decided not to?
Yes.
So you were like, okay, I'm going to the bathroom. And then that was right after he was poking up to close for the mic, and I was like, don't worry, I don't bite. That was funny, but I thought it was a really bad joke, so I didn't. Because
doc, like one NC garlic. I was like, huh, good one.
Creativity right there.
The god.
Debate humor is the worst humor.
Like in conversations with my ordinary friends, I just like think about like debate jokes sometimes
Yeah,
when I
like, I
see
just
things.
can't
I'm
say
just
them.
like, I can't say it. No, I'm just gonna look stupid.
That's why you just only have to be friends. It makes life easier.
Right. Okay, I have a question because I just got on my phone.
Okay.
Why is this like this? Like, why are all these things
The
like?
means you have to connect to like Wi-Fi or enable for system preferences to be able to use your cellular data. So it means it's like trying to update, but it like won't use like your data.
So I should connect to Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Nice. That is useful to know because that's like happened to me before. I had no idea what to do.
Because there's like a safety setting that's set where like App Store won't use data unless you tell it that it's allowed to use data.
Okay. It's probably a good idea. It's probably smart. How many Northland kids came here?
Me and then one of our sophomores. Margaret's in Hawaii.
Margaret? Wait, why is she in Hawaii right now?
Her sister's getting married. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then she's also not going to St. Mark's because she's going to Taylor Swift concert. And I was like, you can't just ditch me. Because we're just like always together.
They're giving an RFD for fire.
So I'm like, I don't even know how to debate with you at tournaments. Because like there's not a lot of people do LD at our school.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's always been like us.
They have like a lot of IE people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Swift concert.
I know, I was like, oh yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
She was gonna like try to compete like at some of the rounds and then just like concede like the last year she
leave
did
for
the tournament. I was like, that's like
Not
no.
worth the money. Like my homecoming was gonna be the same week as St. Mark's. And I was like definitely ditching St. Mark's for homecoming though, so I kinda get that. It's just like, it's a year.
That's what Nick Steele's doing. He's coming to my homecoming.
Oh,
So he does in his tournaments. I was like, hey, I don't know, that's fine.
nice.
Like I'm good with this.
I wonder if this is still on.
I don't think it is.
It's like a really elaborate setup. This is the best like recording
He's
setup
like,
I've
do you
seen.
have a problem with recording? I was like, maybe. I was like, it depends how this round goes. Because RG was like, Mr. Nolan. I was like, I've never talked to Nolan. And he'd be like, wow, thanks for saying hi. I was like, oh, I probably should. It just stressed me out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because it's like just me. Cause like our office is like just getting experience.
Is Rebecca here?
Just like at the same time, like all like Rebecca and Davis are all messaging me, and I'm like, I can't. So like they're telling me things, but like won't like write anything. And I'm like, what do you want me to do?
Is Davis here?
He went to Grapevine last weekend.
Yeah, I saw him there. I didn't really talk to him. Is like Yang coaching y'all still, or did he just coach Davis?
Just Davis. My phone is substantially less sketchy now.
True. That happens to me all the time. No worries, I feel it.
It's like less. It's like more acceptable to be tournaments, but then like in class, and like, what are you doing?
It's like you're taking a test. It's like
I'm
big,
sorry.
like a huge noise. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So I ended up voting F. I think the main problem with the negative is just kind of a lack of engagement on the F on its own terms, and that puts you behind in interacting fairness and education versus after all ballot. You kind of rely on the judge checking in on this. A lot of these appeals to like, oh, the app doesn't make any sense. It's very nebulous. What does it mean? And I think that to prove that it's nebulous, you need to point out a bunch of places in the app that are not well explained. And I think there are places where you can do that in this debate. But just asserting that the app doesn't make sense isn't quite enough to get a link into these vagueness arguments, which is one of the reasons you say prefer fairness. So I ultimately don't end up evaluating the I need arguments on T, because I figure if I can resolve the top layer framing issue, then I don't have to worry about whether or not the app is violated or not. For what it's worth, I do think though the app maybe stylistically or thematically is a little odd to where you debate some of the T and theory very straight up and on its own terms, and I think that is good, but I feel like you kind of half-ass both sides of it, if that makes sense. Like, your explanation for why the roll of the ballot takes out theory could be a lot better. Your explanation for why you're actually fair could be a lot better. And if you went really hard on one of those, I think you could go into a lot more depth. You might be able to do both, and I think part of this is an efficiency problem. I just wrote efficiency in the 1AR, too much talking, not enough arguing. But that's the overall thing for the F. As far as negative arguments for why roll the ballot or why fairness in education should come first, I think the first one is combined with this kind of performative contradiction argument that, like, look, you did follow the rules, you follow rules of speech times, of prep time, that sort of thing. I don't think there was a real impact to this in the 1NC, but the 2NR you did a little bit better, where you said, look, like, there are some categories, some rules that you do and don't have to follow, proven by the fact that you did follow them. But given that this is late developing, you don't have a chance to respond to the 2AR response, which I think is pretty good. That just because we do act in line with certain rules or regulations doesn't mean that we are valuing them or think that they're good, and further that it doesn't close off all forms of becoming. Now, I think this is really dangerous for the AF, because if you're going to say that making our behavior in accordance with one rule is not super bad, then doesn't the neg have a pretty good claim that, oh, you could just become within theory? So I think this is a dangerous spot to be, because it could take out a lot of your impact turns or framing arguments on fairness in education, that those aren't really restrictive of becoming. So I don't know if you want to make that argument.
Go ahead, write that down.
Yeah.
I was a little worried about that. But so I don't think that the neg warrants well enough why complying with the rules, the fact that you comply with some rules, proves fairness matters. And I think the AF could do a better job on this debate, but that's not a really prescriptive reason for me to look to fairness over anything else. The second warrant that the 2NR gives is kind of there are norms of debate, like clearly there are these norms that we follow, we think fairness is good, but I don't see a real prescriptive argument again here that deals with the AF roll of the ballot. The biggest place where I think I was leaning negative was on the education impacts, because I think the AF's explanation of why the roll of the ballot is better for education is this is a place where he is very nebulous, and you should call him out on this specifically. The way you take advantage of it is to say that I have a certain type of education. It is a good type of education. I won't defend that it's like some universal normative category, but in this debate, it would have been good to talk about the topic for XYZ reasons. And so then you can show he is nebulous on this question, I am not. But in this debate, ultimately, you just extend, while topic education would, education would be good, but you don't do that more specific interaction. The other reason I end up citing AF on this debate is because the roll of the ballot arguments are largely conceded, that the roll of the ballot enables a space of possibility, that this possibility is the only way to have education in the first place, and that it somehow recontextualizes what type of education is better. I don't really know what the warrant to that argument is. I don't know how it recontextualizes, but that's better impacting, and at least from a tab perspective, kind of a prerequisite argument that the neg doesn't deal with. So like I said, I don't think that the AF is very good on this, and I think it's a more specific 2NR on I'll go for education, fairness, fine, rules are not really good, but we have to admit that in a good place to be. Another argument that I saw that I drew out of the line by line a little bit, what wasn't labeled super well for the negative, was the I need to be able to debate the AF, and if he doesn't meet these interpretations, then I can't really engage the AF. And I think that's a good argument to make, but not really in the context of this AF, because it's not about really discussing. It's not like, oh, we need to learn about what Deleuze says about becoming. Like, debaters should all learn this, you know. So I don't think engagement really impacts to the AF role of about. The very last argument you gave is kind of vagueness versus knowing the implication of fairness, but I don't have the impact for why I care about the AF being vague or where the AF is specifically vague. So you don't have a great link. Very last thing is the no solvency argument on the AF. Same thing I said above, which is you have to prove what it is that he needs to solve and why he doesn't do it, and actually, so what you say is he doesn't disrupt subject categories or something like that, but I think that the AF story about conceptions of the body, totalization of the body, and how the AF is specific to that, at least gets at some level of solvency. Other comments about this debate that I had were, I think that both sides could do a much better job of centralizing and signposting arguments. You're all over the place in the 1AR, 2NR, and 2AR, and the 2NR should have looked like, I'm winning some theory argument. I have to win one of them because he only has defense for the most part, so I'm probably going to win one of these theory arguments. Here's why comes first, 7 reasons, and just brute force it. And I don't think the 1AR is real specific on a lot of the line by line unfairness, but then the 2NR doesn't pick that up. Do y'all have any specific questions?
Yeah. So okay. So you were talking about like the 1AR not doing not making enough arguments, or just like not like interacting them. So like what did you want to see? Because you said like there was a lot of talking. So like what parts do you think were just talking and I should like take out of the 1AR?
Well, no, you have some efficiency problems just in how like you extend cards, and like I didn't write them down because I wasn't trying to like do a drill with you.
Yeah.
But like, but I noticed them and I was like, come on, you gotta go. The extensions of the AF took too long. I understand that's where you want to be in this debate, is like vote on the AF, vote on the AF, vote on the AF, only the AF. But there's not enough. I think, well, here's a good example. Like in the 1AR, you barely get to the NC, and you barely get to the only 2 arguments she puts on case. And it's like, you need to engage those head on. I would put that at the top. Or when you're extending, you do a good job of big picture interaction. You're like, oh, Masumi takes out theory and the NC. But why don't you say Masumi takes out the number 1, because there is no way to solve that is the one, like.
Okay.
There needs to be more specific cross-apps than just like, this is the highest layer. Your 1AR sounded more like what a 2AR should look like. Your 1AR needs to develop more pieces of offense and do more, just mess with the 2NR by putting offense in all sorts of different places, making them have to deal with a bunch of embedded weighing arguments and embedded clash. And I think you make it too easy for a 2NR to just be like, fairness first. If I win the roll about debate, I win, and like a lot of your stuff. The other thing is, I think you were banking on really like 1 or 2 arguments in this debate, and throughout the entire debate. And so you need to diversify your sources of offense.
Okay.
I didn't really talk about the NC, but I take it that it doesn't really link to the role of the ballot in this debate, and that the Masumi evidence takes it out. That was a cross-app in the 1AR that I don't have you responding to in the 2NR.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.